everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of the industry training series. Today we're going to talk about some common equipment you might encounter on an Emerson set or just various projects you might work on in general. We're going to start off with the thing that probably comes to mind first when you think about audio, which is microphones. There are several types of microphones, but for today, we're going to talk about the one that you're most likely to encounter on a set, which is the shotgun microphone. So the shotgun microphone, this is a condenser microphone. This is a Rode NTG2 condenser microphone. And the thing that makes a shotgun microphone special is that it's very directional, which means that you point it at the source and it's going to pick up audio in that direction. So right now, the way that I'm pointing it, it's going to pick up audio that goes kind of like this shape going out, but it's not really going to pick up anything behind it. So this is a very common microphone. Inside of this blimp, which I'll talk about in a second, we have a Sennheiser 416 microphone. It looks very similar to this. It's just a little bit nicer and it sounds a little bit different. Also very common for Emerson sets. The other type of microphone that you might encounter on an Emerson set is sometimes also referred to as a lav or lav mic for short. So this is just the microphone part and it needs to be attached to a transmitter, and then at the other end you have to have a receiver. And lav mics are nice because it allows the subject to be moving freely from the audio recorder. You don't have to be physically close to them. They can move around without you needing to move a boom pole or a microphone with them. We'll talk more in a later episode for proper techniques and etiquette when using lav microphones on set. The next thing that we'll talk about is the boom pole. You've probably seen one of these. This boom pole, it's 3 sections, so it extends however long you want it to be. This has an internal XLR cable, which means that this cable connects to the microphone up here, and then it goes inside of the boom pole down, and then it's got another connector on the bottom here, where you can plug in your XLR cable to attach it to the recorder. And that just makes it easy to not have a bunch of cables loose, making a mess while you're on set. If you had a boom pole that did not have an internal XLR cable, here's my XLR cable here. You'd want to connect the XLR cable to the microphone up here, and then wrap the XLR cable loosely, but so that it's not going to be hanging down around the boom pole, so that it stays out of the way while you're recording, but you can still extend and retract the boom pole as you need to get the best recording. I definitely prefer boom poles with internal XLR cables. That makes things a lot easier, but if you need to use one without, that's also an option as well. So then the next thing we're going to talk about is recorders. I have 2 types of recorders here. This first one is the Sound Devices 633. This is a pretty fancy recorder that you might see on BFA sets or bigger productions. It has a lot of inputs on this side here. It takes 10 channels of audio, so you could theoretically have 1 boom mic, shotgun microphone on a boom pole, and then 9 other lav mics if you wanted. That would be a lot, but that's kind of the point of this. It allows you to have a lot more audio running. We're not going to focus on this recorder today. Instead, we're going to focus on the Zoom H4n Pro. This is a super handy portable little recorder. It's very similar to the Tascam recorder that you might check out from the EDC. It takes 4 channels, 2 here, and then it actually has built-in microphones. So what's fun about this is you could take it outside with just this stereo microphone here, And this is a pretty good little microphone for it being built into the recorder. And so you could just take it outside and record sounds, just portable. An important note about the Zoom audio recorder and similar recorders is that they only take SD cards up to 32 gigabytes. So don't show up to set with a 128 gigabyte SD card, or your sound recorder will not take it and you will be very confused about what's going on. I've done that before. So this allows you to have multiple microphones going into the recorder. It records directly to an SD card in the recorder. You can change your levels and you can monitor with headphones while you're recording. So once you're recording your audio, you're going to want to be able to hear what you're recording. So you'll need some sort of headphone or monitoring system. There's two main types of headphones that look like this. These are two very distinct types of headphones. This is a closed back headphone and this is an open back headphone. When you're on set, you always want to use a closed back headphone, because what happens with an open back headphone is the sound will leak out the back, and so you'll end up with feedback or being able to hear the sound you'll be recording the sound that's coming out the back of your headphones while you're monitoring it, and that can create feedback or just not sound good in general. Open back headphones are often used for mixing because they usually have better reference sound levels for critical listening. But the closed back headphone, this honestly, any type will do. This is also, this is another type of monitor. It's called an IEM, or an in-ear monitor. They're basically just fancy earbuds. And sometimes I'll use these when I'm on set. It's nice to just have something that's a little bit less in the way and bulky. The most important thing to remember when picking which headphones or monitors you're going to use on set is that you should be familiar with how they sound, because you want to be able to decide when you're on set if the sound that you're hearing is representing the actual acoustic picture of the room in the way that you want it to or not. You can decide if it's a microphone placement issue or if things sound fine and it's just the headphones that you're using. Again, the most important thing is that you're familiar with how the headphones sound so you know what to expect from them. So once you have your boom pole, you're going to need to attach the microphone to the boom pole. So this is just a very simple shock mount. And the reason that you use a shock mount is so that when you're holding the boom pole, the microphone isn't picking up the sounds of you touching the boom pole, because sound will carry through the metal. So when you put it in this shock mount, I will do here. So here it is in the shock mount. Then A, you can actually get it on the end of the boom pole, which is super handy. And B, it won't pick up as much of the sound of you handling the boom pole. There are also pistol grips, which you can see here. We have inside of this is the Sennheiser 416 shotgun mic. This is a very nice mic that we have on campus. Super awesome, would recommend. And this is a fancier shock mount in here. Again, it's just isolating the sound so that when you're on set, if you touch things, it's not as likely to pick up the sound of you moving around. It's going to just pick up what you're pointing it at. And then if you are outdoors or even indoors, the last factor that you'll want to consider is how you are going to keep the sound of wind and breath noise out of your recording. So there's kind of 3 levels of wind protection, I guess we can call it, that you can have for shotgun microphones. This first one is the most basic layer. It's just a simple foam windscreen, and it just slides on the end of the mic like that. And again, you could just put it like that into the shock mount. Then this is probably best for just walking around, even indoors. I would use this. Outdoors, if it's a really crystal clear day, then you could just use a foam windscreen. But you're probably, if there's any bit of breeze, you'll probably want a dead cat. This is a dead cat, named because it's fuzzy and it looks like a dead cat, I guess. And this can just go right over the foam windscreen, and this does a better job of keeping the wind rumble out of your audio. It is far from perfect, but it's better at it. So it just goes on like this, and again into the shock mount and onto the boom pole. And then the best bet you have of keeping wind rumble out of your recording is a blimp or a zeppelin. It's kind of an interchangeable name. And that's this fancy contraption that goes around. So inside it's got kind of a screen, and then it's got a big dead cat on the outside, and it isolates the microphone and keeps a lot of the wind noise out of it. But again, even it is not perfect. So there will be some days where wind in general is your biggest enemy when it comes to sound, because if it gets too windy, there's just really nothing you can do about it, and then you have to deal with it in post-production. But assuming that you have good weather, this is your best bet for keeping the wind noise out of your recording. All of the things that we just discussed are what's called acoustically transparent, so it means it's not going to change the sound of what you're recording at all. So even if you use it indoors, it's not going to negatively impact your recording. It's just going to be heavy and maybe not necessary for what you're doing. But if you have room and you want to get really strong carrying a heavy boom pole around, then it's totally fine to leave these on even if you're inside. And that's going to conclude episode 2 of the industry training series. Be sure to tune back in next week for how to set up for recording audio on set.